Hello my soccer universe. This review of round 26 comes a little bit late due to Easter. Honestly, celebrations and being with family sometimes takes a little bit front and center during these times. However, this round had plenty of talking points. For me, of course, LASK continued their role in the qualification round without again being super convincing. They win their fourth game in a row, and for the fourth time in a row they do not concede. So that is a record that they haven't achieved all that often, and it also shows that they are head and shoulders above their opposition in this round, although they really have to fight hard for it. I actually think this is very positive if you think going forward towards the playoff, because the confidence is definitely building. Of course, we were at the game. It was uncharacteristically cold. My daughter really enjoyed it. Also my wife. We had actually a really nice evening out there. Unfortunately, my older daughter felt a little bit sick, so I thought, maybe with the cold wind it's better to stay home. And was all in all a very positive result. However, the big talking point came definitely on Sunday, when both Vienna teams were dealt rather harsh decisions by the referees. Rapid Vienna suffered another huge loss, also thanks to a red card to their goalkeeper, and Austria Vienna lose against Salzburg at home again. This is a team they barely ever can win against, due to a very controversial penalty being given, one that I honestly thought, thanks to VAR, will never ever be given again. But that's the times that we are living in. We also have some positive news coming out of Klagenfurt, who have found a new sponsor and maybe are looking at getting the license. However, that sponsor was also involved in DSV Leoben last season, a team that is now facing relegation from the third tier into the fourth tier, with some liquidation going on as well. So I'm not quite sure how serious all that is. However, I would be happy if Klagenfurt can get the license and that the battle against the relegation is decided on the pitch. And that one is really, really, really tight, as we will see later on. Whereas the fight for the title at the moment, Sturm Graz have a 5-point lead on top of the table. But am I wrong? Didn't have Salzburg something similar at a similar stage of the season last year, and then Sturm Graz won? Well, questions over questions, and we have to see how it will all pan out. But at the moment it all seems like it's going in Sturm Graz's favor. But maybe it was not so bad that this video was shot a little bit late, so while I'm editing I'm hit by huge and absolutely unbelievable news coming out of LASK land that I still don't know what to think about it, except that it's again utter chaos at my favorite club. The news are that Markus Schopp and the entire staff that he has hired around himself are relieved of their duties effective immediately, and that the assistant coach Maximilian Richter, who already should have been hired a year ago when they let go of coach Sageda and then proceeded to not get the license, that he's taking over. WTF? This is easily one of the least understandable coaching decisions that I have ever seen. I think this easily makes a top 3, although if I think about it, we once let go of a coach who had just beaten Rapid 5-0, but that was in 98, and maybe there were also the ambitions a little bit too high, and he maybe wanted to get a better coach. But I'm thinking of Valerian Ismail, who just had the best LASK season ever. You got ousted only by Manchester United in Europe after a great run, winning a group and winning the regular season. And yes, then there were some bad decisions. Corona hit, blah, 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 blah. But he was a wildly popular coach and got fired, and LASK have not been the same since, honestly. When I think about the firing of coach Didi Kübauer at the end of the 22-23 season, when the stadium just got opened, this was one of the best playoff runs that we had. They played really great, and then you let it go only to hire coach Sageda at the beginning of the 23-24 season, where also the fall was great, but then yes, things were not that great, and you fire him to getting coach Darash. And the hiring and firing of coaches, this is exactly the point where you will never have success. You gotta stick with a concept and with a coach, and this is what really annoys me. It's flip-flopping. You got Kübauer in.
I think in 22 this was the absolute right decision, although I did not like it back then, because Kübauer was so not what I was thinking about a LASK coach, but he did great work. Him getting fired made absolutely no sense at the time. But then you go back to the old rules with Coach Sageda. You don't even give him an entire season, and at the first sign of some crisis, out with him. You were vindicated with a great playoff run again, finishing again in third place. But you still don't hit. Again, you have a transfer policy. The players were not that great. I mean, with so many changes, how are you supposed to build a squad? And what's even worse is that, yes, the play under Markus Schopp maybe was not the greatest as of late, but you could see a great transition coming from the fall, where everything was still patchwork, to now where I could at least make out an identity. Yes, it was not attractive, and I definitely felt that the connection between the defense and the offense in the nice playing of the game was missing. However, you had 4 wins in a row, and you were easily cruising to winning the relegation round. With this, I really have no idea. Honestly, it doesn't make any sense. And the overall joke is, of course, that Markus Schopp was yesterday on national television in a discussion round, and he was asked about LASK and his relationship with the president, whether he feels still supported, and said, "Of course I'm supported. I really feel so." Tells you there's no support in this world anymore. But before we look at the situation, how things are, and also look ahead, let's review the action from this 26th round of the Austrian Bundesliga. Well, LASK continued their romp through the relegation round, getting their 4th win in a row, and for the 4th time they have not conceded a goal. This is something they have only achieved 3 times before in Bundesliga history, and that's actually quite cool. On the other side, the opposition was not the highest one, and also the performances were not necessarily great. This time I thought it was a decent one. You started out brightly on an uncharacteristically cold night. You started out brightly, you had a few chances, you barely hit the target. I think there was an Andrade header that was the biggest chance, but other than that it was just some off shots or blocked shots. But after 20 minutes or so, right when the fans who were protesting again against the pink jerseys won last week came in, the game kinda broke, and they had some hard time breaking down WSG Tirol, and WSG Tirol themselves had some slightly dangerous moments in there. However, second half a few adjustments were made, and from the get-go LASK were the dominant team and get the breakthrough go in the 50th minute through Lang, who first blocks a clearance by Naschberger and then converts that one into the net, and 3 minutes later an absolute brilliant goal by Robert Schul. Again, the ball was won up high, Bochard runs, puts it back to Schul, who takes the ball, puts it past the defender with one leg and then guides it into the net with the other. A really nice piece of skill. The only thing that I would have expected, then there will be more goals coming. There weren't really. There were only half chances. Tirol actually put some pressure on LASK, but again, I really thought that goalie Laval didn't have to do much, and in defense they were rather sound. The final scoreline may say 0-0, however the meeting between Klagenfurt and GRK was anything but a 0-0. If you look at XG, it was 1.73 to 1.49. Plenty of chances, none bigger than the Bobzin penalty in the 61st minute that was easily saved, it has to also be said. It was a game where both goalies ran hot, especially GRK had multiple chances one-on-one with the goalie Spari, and he took it away every single time. Many things happening. In the end, nothing happens. Altach were so close of celebrating the first home win under the new coach, leading 1-0 against Hartberg and having a man more. Kameri getting the goal in the 61st minute by yanking in a shot from the edge of the box. However, as always, finishing lets them down, and Hartberg got more and more desperate because they knew if you lose here, then you're suddenly in the relegation battle, whereas if you at least get a draw out, it's a point won, but more importantly, you will keep some distance to the bottom 4. And yes, Hofer got sent off with a second yellow card in the 71st minute, so for 20 minutes Hartberg were more or less holding on, but they get the equalizer through Heil, almost the same goal as Kameri earlier on.
With an overall unremarkable 2-0 win over Blau-Weiß Linz, Sturm Graz keep their title rivals at a distance and are very much set on defending their title. Blau-Weiß Linz kept it tight, was aggressive as well, and Sturm Graz kind of played it slow in the first half. Took the lead through a Tommy Horvath hands penalty, and that was more or less it in the first half. In the second half, they start out with a whole lot more energy and pressure and finally get then the second goal through Böwing. However, Blau-Weiß Linz was not to be undone, had a few chances to maybe pull one back, but in the end it ends with a 2-0 win. Rapid's week from hell was completed with a 5-1 loss at Wolfsberg. The result that keeps Wolfsberg very much in the race for at least spot 2, which means Champions League qualification. So remarkable stuff. However, it was also a very contentious game. Yes, Zukic opened scoring or in 10th minute, Bellew equalized from a penalty 24th, but the scene that everyone's talking about is in the 27th minute when Hedl comes out, takes down Tiano Ballo, and the referee Gieshammer immediately issues a red card for a last man offense. However, if you look at the geometry on the field, there were potentially 2 more players in there, and did Hedl even play the ball? So questions over questions. It was not overturned by VAR, and this was a situation that you probably would have wanted to have another look at. However, with a man less and given all the exertion already from the midweek, there was really no coming back for Rapid in the second half. They really fell apart when Zukic in the 62nd minute made it 2-1. The game was done, and then Agiaman in the 73rd and Koicek in the 89th and in the 93rd add 3 more goals. And Rapid are very much stuck in 5th place at the moment, and major questions are being asked already. And one can very well argue that refereeing also let down Austria Vienna in the 1-3 home loss to Red Bull Salzburg. True, Salzburg led 2-0 after 50 minutes. Jorbe Vertes in the 8th and a brilliant goal by Nene in the 11th gave Salzburg at the time already deserved 2-0 lead. However, Maurice Malone pulls one back in the 17th, and Austria Vienna were really well in the game. And right after the half, they scored 2 goals, both of them chalked off for sometimes really teeny tiny offsides, but chalked off they were. However, there was also a goal by Salzburg chalked off because the corner kick seemingly had crossed the line before it was headed home. However, that really could not be resolved via any video, and it actually suggested that it was not that case. But the big scene then happened in the 62nd minute when Prelec, although trying to stay away from Nene, slightly touches his heel, but then his heel gets caught in the backside of the foot and Nene comes down in the box. It is a penalty decision that I can potentially see it being given during the game. However, when you look at it at VAR, Nene really wanted to have the penalty, and it even survives the VAR review, although this is a penalty that I really think should not have been given. It ends with a 3-1 win. Austria Vienna's momentum was gone at that point, and in the end Salzburg overtake their opponents in the table and remain now the first chaser of Sturm Graz. With all these results, Sturm Graz remain now the leaders in the league with a 5-point cushion over Salzburg. It looks comfortable. However, 5 points maybe sounds even more. You need to just hit a funk for 2 games and suddenly Salzburg would be back into the running. But at the moment, I don't see many teams that could hurt Sturm Graz. Or aren't there some good fixtures coming up? Let's see about that. Austria Wien at the moment is fighting potentially for the second spot, as is Wolfsberg. Rapid is already towards the bottom, and I think we have to say they will finish at best 5th. And that is a rather big disappointment, given what a good run they had in the Conference League, but also how they played at the beginning of the season, where it really seemed like Rapid could go for the title. On the bottom, LASK even more comfortable, 10 points ahead of Hartberg. I guess this is almost wrapping it up. Yes, I don't want to get too much ahead of myself, but it looks really, really good. Except with firing a coach, you, of course, needed to throw a little wrench into the whole thing. Whereas on the bottom, Hartberg probably just stay out of the relegation battle, but Klagenfurt, Tirol, GRK and Altach, that's 2 points between 4 teams. And they're all having their highs and their lows. What's interesting is that among all the 6 teams that are down there, yes, LASK have won everything. thing. But the next team is GAK, who have already gotten 5 points out of these 4 games, where all the others have only 4. So tells you it's very level, and I think this will go down to the wire. Round 27 is already played in the midweek, and it's part of a double round. So on the weekend we have the reverse fixtures for that, and then it actually reverses all the way back as well. We have GAK against Hartberg, a Styrian derby with huge repercussions. We have WSG Tirol against Altach. This is relegation battle in its purest form, and Klagenfurt maybe would try to get a lift against LASK. However, they have not won against LASK in their existence. So, but maybe thanks to firing your coach, there might be enough impetus for Klagenfurt to actually win against LASK. I think the biggest one there is definitely WSG Tirol against Altach. These games are played on Tuesday evening. And on Wednesday, we also have quite some big games. We have Blau-Weiß Linz against Rapid. Blau-Weiß Linz, that's your chance of maybe getting into the conversation for this playoff spot if you beat Rapid. They have already beaten Rapid twice. Salzburg face Wolfsberg. Maybe there's a pre-decision in the race for the second place already. And then Austria Wien against Sturm Graz. This was meant to be the title fight. However, Austria Vienna now have lost 2 games in a row, and yeah, doesn't look so rosy. But if you beat Sturm Graz, you're very well back into the discussion, and you would open up the title race, I would argue. So, those are my thoughts on the happenings in the Austrian Bundesliga. Please let me know what you thought about these. As I said before, I was finishing with a very positive tone on LASK. I don't understand this club anymore. I don't understand this club. And yes, I will be continue to support this club, but all the reasoning that has been coming out makes next to no sense. So, yeah. In any case, give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to my channel if you want to see more. I'll talk to you soon about more things in my Austrian Bundesliga universe. Bye! Hey there, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, here are some videos and playlists that you may enjoy too. Also, please consider subscribing to my channel and hit the little bell icon so you get notified whenever something happens in my soccer universe. And with that, have a wonderful day. Bye!